Between the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Battletoads, and even the Simpsons, the early 1990s was a golden time for old-school beat-em-ups. But while Americans were practically coming to blows arguing over Streets of Rage and Final Fight, there was a whole generation of brawlers released in Japan that simply never made their way to the US. I'm talking about 16-bit games like Gourmet Warriors, Iron Commando, and Water Margin. These are just a few of the games featured in the Beat 'em Up collection, the newest compilation from Brazilian publisher QUByte. It's a fun trip back to a time when you could base a whole game around punching people in the face. But the real question is, do any of these games actually hold up? Well, that's what we're about to find out when I review the Beat 'em Up collection. True to its name, the Beat 'em Up collection features 7 different games that mostly fit into the brawler genre, all released between 1990 and 1996. This includes the early Genesis hack and slasher Sword of Sodan and the 1994 fantasy brawler Legend, as well as Gourmet Warriors, a bizarre beat 'em up that mixes science fiction with French cuisine. Other games include the 1995 Super Famicom release of Iron Commando, Water Margin from 1996, and both First Samurai and Second Samurai. Of these games, only 2 of them made their way to the United States, which means that you'll probably be playing most of these brawlers for the first time ever. Now, this compilation doesn't stray all that far from QUByte's previous collections, which includes everything from the one-on-one fighting game series Breakers to the racing classic Top Gear. These are, for the most part, bare-bones affairs that give you the games, a few options, maybe a couple of cheats, and that's about it. No history of the game, or interviews, or anything like that. I mean, this is QUByte we're talking about, not Digital Eclipse. Hell, this Beat 'em Up collection doesn't even tell you what systems these games came out for. While it would have been nice to have all the bells and whistles, they aren't essential when it comes to a game compilation. The truth is, the only thing that matters is whether or not the games are fun. Now, you can go and read about the history online, because what you're here for are the games. And in the case of the Beat 'em Up collection, the games are, well, they're fine, I guess. Look, these are not top-tier brawlers. As much as I got a kick out of Gourmet Warriors' wacky sense of humor, it's clearly not in the same league as Final Fight or Streets of Rage. Hell, I'd probably take a second-tier title like Rival Turf over most of the games in this collection. I mean, I think Legend is one of the better games in this whole compilation, but does it hold a candle to the fantasy-themed beat-em-ups that Capcom was making at the time? No, not even close. And for as exciting as Water Margin is, it came out at a time when gamers had not only moved away from this style of brawler, but it also leveled up from their old 16-bit hardware. I guess what I'm saying is that there's a reason why most of these games never came to America. That said, there actually is a lot to like about each game. Gourmet Warriors is absolute madness, giving you a tasty science fiction story and mixing in all the ingredients you need for a delicious dish. Literally, this is a game about collecting food. It also has over-the-top characters with cheesy names like Bomber, Baron, Bonjour, an absolutely wild assortment of futuristic enemies, and even a pose button, which seemingly has no gameplay advantage. It just looks cool. I also really like the level designs and some of the unique ways they go about throwing and beating up the bad guys. Had they tightened up the gameplay, paced the levels a little bit better, and added just a bit more depth, this really could have been something cool. You see, I can do this for basically every game in this collection. For example, I really like how Iron Commando emphasizes the guns, something that really makes it stand out from all the other brawlers. It also has a couple of cool vehicle stages, as well as some cool looking backgrounds. Legend is definitely one of the better looking games in this entire collection, and it also offers one of the longer stories. I was especially impressed with the fun way that the map is represented. That's a nice touch. Of the games in this collection, my favorite is First Samurai, which I would argue is not even a beat 'em up. It's more of a side-scrolling action platformer, complete with well-crafted stages that require you to not just use your fast reflexes, but also use your brain to solve puzzles. I wasn't as big of a fan of the sequel, Second Samurai, but both the games do a good job of breaking up the repetition of the other Brawlers. And that is the unfortunate knock against this entire collection. It's just so damn repetitive. Look, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of this style of beat 'em up, but there's a reason why these games are only 40 minutes long. What I quickly discovered is that this is not the kind of collection you want to binge. For this review, I ended up playing through all the games in a very short amount of time, and I'll freely admit that that was a big mistake. No matter the theme or the gimmick, a lot of these games start to blur together, and I found getting through the longer games to be a real slog. Now, would that still be the case if I had spread these games out? Probably not. Had I given myself a little more time between these games, I likely would have been a little more forgiving of each game's imperfections. But let me tell you, when you play them all in a row, you start to realize why 90s gamers started to lose interest in the genre. It also makes you appreciate just how much better the new crop of retro-inspired brawlers are, like Streets of Rage 4. It also doesn't help that a lot of these games have big, glaring problems. They're slow and they're sluggish, often with poorly designed stages. There are multiple games here where they want you to stomp on a tiny enemy or a snake or something, but our hero simply doesn't have the moves to effectively get the job done. And it's not just that either. No matter how much fun you're having, there's always something that'll try to get in the way and actively try to ruin the experience. Like I said before, these are not the top tier beat 'em ups, but rather the second or maybe even the third stringers. And yet, part of me wants to actually recommend the beat 'em up collection. While there are no must-play games for me to rave about, what you do get are 7 mostly good games. There are a couple of notable duds, I'm looking straight at you sorta Sodan, but games like Water Margin, Legend, and Gourmet Warriors more than makes up for that. It's also cheap, coming in at only $20. For that reason, I'm going to give this a very tepid recommendation. Just make sure that you take breaks between the games. There's no reason to rush. If you're into beat 'em ups and want to play a bunch of 30-year-old brawlers that you've probably never even heard of, then the beat 'em up collection is for you. That said, you may want to temper your expectations a bit, because there's nothing as good as Final Fight or Streets of Rage in this package. On the other hand, with only a couple of duds, most fans of the genre will have a good time with this collection, even if it is a bit bare bones and there are few standout games. Let me tell you, you're getting a lot of punch for your $20. A lot of repetitive punches. If that sounds like a good thing to you, then the beat 'em up collection is worth seeking out. Hi, thanks for watching my review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What's your favorite underappreciated beat 'em up? I'm talking about the brawlers that nobody's talking about. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we're going to be back shortly with a review of 9 Years of Shadows, as well as a new brawler called Fallen City Brawl. Yeah, I needed to take a break before jumping right back into another beat 'em up. I think you understand. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,